Well, hello there. Welcome back to another episode of Holding History. We're just continuing on with the profile, the series of my United States typeset. This is going to be page 2, and we'll be taking a look at half dimes, nickels, and whole dimes. So 5 cents and 10 cent denominations here. And we'll just go ahead and get started, not to waste any more of your time with any mumbo jumbo. Here we go with half dimes. Alright, entry number 1 would be this capped bust. Mine is in 1832, as you see, rather late in the series. And this one has the very common mint error die break for the 8, so you can see the lower half of the 8 is filled in. That was an error that was done at the mint. Quite a few of them were released like this. Wasn't considered a major deal, so here is one with an interesting little mint error. And these were fairly common for that era in United States coinage. 1832 5 cent silver half dime. All right, here is the entry for the earlier iterations of the seated Liberty. This is in 1858. A lot of detail, but just some issues with the high points there. Not sure what was going on, but there's the 1858. Here is the Arrows, which was a three-year run for the arrows the first time. This is in 1854. The arrows were used to indicate a change in silver composition or a change in silver weight, not necessarily the composition, but a little bit of a change after the prices were manipulated a little bit. They had to change the weight of how it was weighed out. So that's what the arrows were put on there to represent. 1853, 54, and 55. And then on some of the denominations, again, 1873 and 74. Okay, and then this is a nice little toned example here. This is the later, where instead of the stars around Liberty, you see that there was a legend, United States of America. Let me get down where you can see some of this interesting toning going on. Blues, golds, some fingerprint toning. Not an uncirculated piece by any means, but one that does have quite a bit of detail and some really nice toning happening. So that toning has really developed over the last few years just sitting in this album. So excited to see what that one might look like in 10, 15, 20 years. Alright, that would conclude the half dimes. Now moving on to the nickel 5 cent pieces. This is the first year shield nickel. The reverse has raise versus no raise on the later ones, so we would show you the reverses, but I'm just not going into that kind of detail here, so you can look those up. Not very attractive coins in my opinion. The nickel that was used for these corroded very quickly. One uncirculated examples of any of these go for several $100 just because of the fact that they were used so much and they wore out very quickly. So finding nice examples of these is very difficult. Alright, then you have the two different stylings for the Liberty Head nickels, also known of course as the V nickels. You've got the first year over here, 1883, in which there was no cents on the reverse, giving rise to the racketeer nickels, gold-plated past as $5 gold pieces. Interesting story there, you can always look that up. And then very quickly, later in 1883, they did add cents to the reverse to indicate 5 cents versus $5. And then that is the way they were minted until they ceased production on these in 1912. And here's a rather nice 1905. Again, the detail is the relief is very shallow on these, so finding examples with quite a bit of detail left on them, they do command quite a premium. All right, first year Buffalo nickel, 1913. This would be a raised mound reverse, a little grungy, this example, but all the detail is there, so I went ahead and picked this up for a good bargain quite a while back. Type 1 Buffalo leading into the Type 2 Buffalo, and this would be a last year, 1938. That's a nice uncirculated example, and then a first year Jefferson. So as has happened quite a few times in coinage history, we had two different designs that were produced in the same year. The first year Jefferson, the last year Buffalo. So there those two are, nice uncirculated examples. War nickel, a nice uncirculated 1943. These had the large mint marks on the reverse above Monticello. And just the composition, 35% silver, gives them a little bit of a different look to these coins. So these are always nice to see. All right, moving on into 10-cent pieces, we have dimes. My cap bust has got a few issues on the front. You think the front looks bad, you should see the reverse, but lots of detail here. So again, went ahead and picked that one up quite a while ago. The earlier seated Liberty with stars instead of legend on the obverse. This is in 1857. And then moving on down here, if I can get enough light on it, we have a bent and damaged 1854 with arrows. Not a very attractive piece by any means, but it does fill the hole. And then here is a last year, 1891, that has quite a bit of detail on it, so rather pleased with that one. And again, that is the last year. They were replaced the following year by the barber dimes, which started in 1892, as you see here. This is a polished one that I've had since I was very young, but a lot of detail there. Again, details over details, I guess you could call it. All right, here we have a first year Mercury Dime. Don't worry, it's not a 1916D. I would not own a 1916D in this condition. This one is probably a slider uncirculated, just a few dollar coin versus a many hundreds or thousands of dollars if this were a 1916D. So that's a nice first year hole filler. And then this is a sort of an impaired proof 1957 for the Roosevelt, and then a proof 1970 for the clad Roosevelt. So nothing too interesting there. But again, the first page that has any measurable amounts of silver, and I wanted to give you a peek at that as we continue on in the series profiling the typeset. So there it is. That is page 2. If you have any questions or need to correct anything that I've misstated, misspoken in this, please do so in the comments. And as always, I appreciate you taking the time to watch. Thanks so much. Page 3 will be coming up here shortly over the next few days. Thanks.